Welcome to the How to Adult podcast, where we learn all things adulting. My name's Travis Walker, and I will be your host. And today's topic is all about identifying and utilizing your strengths. Our guest today is the Lindsay Carrick. So get excited and buckle up because we're about to learn how to adult together. We are back for another episode of How to Adult, and we've got a very special guest today, Lindsay, or I used to call you Brother Mom.
I still own that name.
You should definitely still own that name. We met through my time with the fraternity, and Lindsay did some great work there. But how are you doing today, Lindsay?
Oh, I'm great. It's great to see you again, Travis, and I'm excited to be with you.
Absolutely. Could you give a little background to who you are, maybe the work that you're doing, specifically with around this topic that we have today, which is utilizing and identifying our strengths. So can you give me a little bit of background to who you are?
Sure, absolutely. So my name's Lindsay Carrick. I am currently the director of leadership development with an organization called Kiwanis International. We are a global service organization that serves children and youth, and I have the privilege of training all of our volunteer leaders from our club level all the way up to our international board of trustees. And I also, in conjunction with that, am a certified strengths coach with Gallup. And so, with that certification, I've had the opportunity to geek out and learn everything there is to learn about the Clifton Strengths Assessment and utilizing our strengths and helping others tap into their strengths and figure out how to focus on what comes naturally to us and not worry so much about those things that we just don't seem to be that great at.
Totally fair. Totally fair. What made you want to get that certification in the Gallup Strengths? What pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, so I think I was introduced to strengths back in grad school, and that might have been when I took the assessment for the first time, and I was kind of blown away by my results and
Yeah.
how accurate I felt like it was and how much it read me. There are a lot of those assessments out there, personality assessments. We've got the Myers-Briggs or the MBTI. We've got Enneagram now. We've got DISC and colors and all of these different things, right? Trying to tell us a little bit more about ourselves. And it's always fun to kind of get this insight. But strengths is different in
Yeah.
that it is not a personality test, but
Mhm.
rather an assessment on our natural talents, those things that we're kind of born able to do. It is grounded in an extreme amount of research and science, and our results over the course of our life really don't change that drastically.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until until I got trained. But I started using strengths more. I had a career in higher education, as you kind of alluded to. Before I started with Kiwanis, I worked on a college campus. Then I worked for the fraternity headquarters, and I utilized strengths in the leadership development training that I was doing there, and that was really fun. But I knew I didn't quite understand it fully
Sure.
until Kiwanis was kind enough to help me get certified. And yeah, now it all just kind of makes a lot more sense. So um, I love it. I love sharing it. So I'm excited to dive into it with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do a little speaking as well. Is that about strengths or is that a different topic?
It's a mix. Yeah, I love to include strengths in my speaking. So I do have a speaking business called Lindsay Leads. I do a little bit of speaking, a little bit of strengths coaching, a little bit of consulting. I talk a lot about living intentionally and embracing change when I speak. But I also love to help individuals and teams figure out what those natural talents are and help them figure out how to use them more effectively in a team or organization setting.
Right, right. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Living the dream. So if we could zoom out for a moment on this idea of strengths, why do people need to know their strengths? Why is that something that we need to know? And then kind of a follow up to that, what opportunities do you think unlock when you know your strengths?
Oh, yeah, great question. So I think we as humans, at least in the US, are kind of conditioned to focus on what do we need to improve about ourselves?
Oh,
What,
sure.
what are our weaknesses? Man, we need to know that. And boy, we should be working on those things, right? Um, when I do any sort of training around strengths, the first activity that I do with the group is to have everyone in the room pick up a pen or a pencil and write a simple sentence on a piece of paper. Okay. Then I ask them to pick up that pen or pencil with the opposite hand and write the same sentence.
Wow.
It's tough, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that you do every day. Everybody's usually laughing at themselves, right? Like, "Oh my gosh, it looks like, a kindergartner did this. This is terrible." And that is a wonderful illustration of why we should stop focusing on the things that don't come naturally to us and instead lean into the things that we are really great at to
Sure.
achieve what we need to achieve. All right. Now, there are going to be some weaknesses, right? No one is perfect. Everyone has blind spots. Everyone has these things that just don't come naturally to us, and that's fine. Usually, we can use the things that we are good at to get to where we need to go. And when we can't, that's when we lean on other people. That's why it's important to have a team of people that we surround ourselves with, whether that's in our personal lives, in our professional lives, or beyond. We utilize the people around us and the strengths that they have, the things they bring to the table to help us achieve our goals. So that's one of the first lessons that we learn is that we need other people. All
Right.
right. We cannot constantly put everything on us, on
That's
ourselves.
hard. That's hard for people.
It is. It's so hard. It's so hard to ask for help. It's so, I feel like driven into us as a society to just take it all on. And if you want something done right, do it yourself kind of a mentality.
Right.
And in reality, that's not how we're going to show up and do our best work. In reality, we need to include other people in that. And I think the first step to unlocking our strengths and tapping into those more is just self-awareness, figuring it out, right? Take the assessment as step
Yeah.
one. Or just do a self-reflection to figure out what it is that you do bring to the table, what brings you joy, um, what what things just seem to come naturally to you, and then start practicing, use that stuff more.
Right. Right. That's so good. That's so good. I totally agree, and I think that it is kind of a societal thing of we don't
Mhm.
like to ask for help. Some of the best mentors that I've had the pleasure of having are really good at drawing teams together that
Mhm.
utilize different strengths. Is that something that is common with this type of assessment and knowing your strengths?
Absolutely. The cool thing is your strengths are unique. You are one in 33 billion people that will
Mhm.
have the same top five strengths in the same order in the world. Okay.
Oh
So
wow.
every individual brings something super unique to the table. So you aren't necessarily looking to surround yourself with people with uh, identical talents, right? You want diversity around you. The other thing to keep in mind is that we are never going to purposely hire, or we are never going to purposely fill a role or surround ourselves with people based on the strengths that they show up with, because our strengths don't determine if we can do a job, but they determine how we will approach that work. All right.
Mhm.
So we are never going to say, put this in some sort of a job description, for example, that, our next director of leadership development needs to be a learner, and they need to be an achiever, and they need to be this and that and this. Um, those things may be great, and maybe those things could help me, for example, do my job better, but I can get the job done no matter what talents I possess. I just may approach that job very differently than you with your unique strengths, so on and so forth. So what tools we have in our toolbox aren't as important as how we use those tools.
Right. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And so as we're kind of starting to talk about the utilization, which is fun to
Mm,
me. So once we know what our strengths are, we take the assessment, whether it's the Gallup one or one of the several others that are out there.
sure.
How should we start to utilize them and put that into practice in terms of maybe our daily practices, our yearly, lifetime? How should we approach the utilization of our strengths?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you start getting to know what they mean, you own them a little bit, right? Like, okay, I understand what these mean to me. Then you can start honestly looking backward and say, how have these shown up for me in the past without me even realizing it? How
Yeah.
have I used these things? Maybe how am I even using these right this moment to achieve what it is that I'm trying to accomplish in my day to day life? And once you start recognizing that, then you start being able to look forward and say, okay, how can I be more intentional about this? How can I start using these things moving forward to achieve what it is that I need to do tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, um, to get myself ready to get there? So,
Right.
yeah, I think awareness and ownership is number one. Recognizing where it's shown up in the past and where it's showing up currently, step two. And then you can kind of aim it and look forward as you get ready to use it in the future.
Yeah, that's really good. And this conversation is making me think about when I started CrossFit for the first time, which may seem unrelated, but I started in July of 2023, and I've been an athlete my whole life. But
Yeah.
starting CrossFit was like super hard for me.
Yeah.
But the people around me told me that I was doing really well just for starting, and I attribute that to, well, I've been an athlete my whole life, so I'm applying a lot of that foundation that I learned as a child and applying it
Hmm.
to what I'm trying to do now. And so
Hmm.
I think the same kind of concept applies is when you know your strengths, you look backwards, you realize that you've built that foundation in strategy or communication or one of the other categories, and then you
Hmm.
can better apply it after that realization of, oh yeah, that is a strength, I have that foundation.
Hmm.
Is that kind of how you see applying it?
Absolutely. So, as an example, I am a relator. So that means that I'm not necessarily super great mingling in a large room of people. However, I am good with one-to-one relationships.
Yeah.
Put me with one individual and tell me to have a conversation, I'm fine. Put me up on stage in front of 5,000 people, I'm fine. But have
Yes.
me have small talk in a small group, I'll just sit back and listen, right? So when I traveled for the fraternity and I travel now for Kiwanis International, I was constantly being put in these conference convention type settings where I was surrounded by people I didn't know. I had to figure out how to make small talk with people and whatever. And so rather than allowing myself to be overwhelmed by that or forcing myself to be good at that because I knew I just wasn't, I instead would target individuals in those spaces and try to connect with them one on one. And then maybe they would introduce me to another person, and then I would have a conversation with that person. And that is how I would end up working a room. Because I knew if I tried to do it any other way, I would feel super anxious and overwhelmed. And I'd just end up going and hiding in my hotel room the rest of the time. So that's kind of how I have leaned into my strengths to do parts of my job that aren't necessarily the most comfortable for me,
Right.
and it's worked really well.
That's really good. That's really good. And I love that this conversation around utilizing our strengths and specifically with this idea of overcoming adversity. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
people are facing adversity in their life, and if they're not going to, or they already have. And I'm interested in this conversation of how we utilize our strengths to overcome adversity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are wonderful things that can be pulled from within us, right? To do whatever it is that we need to do, and we know nobody out there is living some perfect problem free life, right? Life may feel like it's going great right now, but underneath the surface there are things that people are battling with every single day, right? And so we have to kind of own that discomfort, live in that discomfort a little bit, and then dig deep and say, okay, what do I have within me that I can use to push through this situation that I'm in right now, this difficult time that I know is not necessarily going to go away immediately. Um, this tough job that I just have to sit with right now because I don't have a lot of other options, whatever that is, to help us find a little bit of joy
Right.
and a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel that we can grasp onto. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here to utilize our natural given talents to help us push through and make us feel a little more comfort within the discomfort.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that, and also thinking about utilizing your strengths to overcome other people's adversity. I'm an avid listener of the Burt Show, which is a national radio show, and
Mhm.
right now they're doing what's called Burt's Big Adventure, where they take children, cancer patients, to Disney or somewhere they want to go.
Oh,
Uh,
fun.
Anyways, I think it's interesting. He's using his radio show. He's using his platform to help overcome other people's adversity. And I see that he's using his strength as a communicator. He's using his strength as
Mhm.
having a platform, having a listenership, and helping other people. So I think that applies to this conversation.
Mhm.
Do you see people using their strengths to help other people very often?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is one thing that I absolutely love about working with Kiwanis International. So, Kiwanis is full of kind-hearted volunteers, right? All over the globe, 80 plus different countries. We have uh, adults and youth that are out there wanting to serve their communities. And I do Clifton Strengths with a lot of our leaders. And
Yeah,
one thing that's really interesting is the bulk of the world's population. So this is a global assessment. Um, Millions of people have taken it. The majority of people fall within what we call the executing domain. There are four different categories that all of our strengths fall into. Okay,
hmm,
um, and one of those categories is the executing domain, meaning that they are really focused on just getting things done
sure,
and accomplishing things. One of those another category is relationship building, and within that category, you'll find things like empathy and connectedness and developer and relator and positivity. All of these strengths that involve assisting other people, building other people up, helping others. The bulk of the Kiwanians that I have done this training with fall in that relationship building category, even though the bulk of those throughout the world don't necessarily. The bulk of the Kiwanians do. And I just
Interesting.
find that super interesting that um, these people who are out there doing so much good in the world are following their strengths, and
Right.
most of them without even realizing it. These helping strengths, these connecting strengths are things that they're really good at, and they're leaning into that, and they are doing so many positive things out there in the world for other people, and I just think that's beautiful. So yes, I definitely think that our strengths can be used to our own advantage, but as well as used towards helping others. And yeah, so I think that's a kind of a fun little tidbit.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's fabulous. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but I'm interested. We're talking about strengths and how strengths are utilized, but how should we think about our weaknesses? We know that they're apparent in our
Yeah,
society, maybe more apparent. How should we think about those in this conversation?
yeah, absolutely. I think being aware is the most important thing. Just owning it. Um, you know, I will share my own. So, with Clifton Strengths, there are 34 potential outcomes. Most people see the top 5 from the assessment, but you can um, get the full 34, where it will show you your top. It will show you all 34 in rank
Yeah,
order, which
right.
means you see what is at the absolute bottom. So when I'm doing a lot of coaching, I don't even necessarily recommend the full 34, because where do our eyes go immediately? To the bottom. What am I
Right.
worst at? Right. But it is good to know. It is good
Right.
to be aware. My number 34 is includer. And what that means is I do have a tendency to just do things myself.
Yeah.
I don't stop to take the time to think, who else should be sitting at the table right now? Who else could be really helpful in this situation? Who else needs to be a part of this conversation? I'm a doer. I want to get it done. I want to move fast. So it's not necessarily that I don't want other people at the table. It's just I don't even think about it. I just
Right.
do. And so I know that about myself. So I try to surround myself with people who are strong includers, or will at least remind me of the fact that I'm not.
Right.
So that it will slow me down. It will allow me to say, okay, who's missing? Who
Right.
needs to be a part of this conversation that's not? Um, and then I can stop and pull others in as needed and things like that. So, awareness of your weaknesses is super important, owning it, and then starting to surround yourself with people who fill those gaps.
Right.
It is going to be key. You can look at it from a personal perspective as well. Um, I am an activator. So that means, like I was kind of explaining before, um, I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to jump in and do it. Right.
Sure.
My partner is very strategic. And so he is going to stop me and say, okay, this is great, but let's just think about this for a minute before we go out and make this massive purchase, or before we, make these plans or whatever. Let's like pause and think about this for a minute. So, we've talked a lot about strengths in our professional lives, but strengths can absolutely be used in interpersonal relationships at home, raising your kids, all this kind of stuff. You can definitely tap into it from that perspective as well.
Wow. I love that. I love that utilization too. I wouldn't have thought about using it in my personal life in addition to professional.
Yeah.
That's really good. Oh yeah. So I'm thinking about how this plays into teams, and a team all knows their strengths, right?
Mhm.
Um, how does that play into it? If I know that
Mhm.
my coordinator that with is an includer, and maybe I'm
Mhm.
not, and maybe I have a strength that she doesn't have. How does all of that play into our conversations and how we work and teamwork in general? Maybe.
Yeah. So one thing about surrounding yourself with people who are very different than you is that you are going to approach your work in very different ways, and that can lead to clash. That can
Oh,
lead
sure.
to misunderstandings, miscommunications, not really understanding where the other person is coming from. But if you actually have these conversations with your team so that you fully understand what the strengths are of the other person and why they are approaching their work in the way that they are, um, then that makes all of the difference, right? If
Right.
I know that a person on my team is deliberative, for example, and I'm an activator and I want to go, 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 but they have to think through everything in full force, or
Sure.
maybe they are high in focus. All right. And I'm sending them a Teams message, ran Teams messages randomly throughout the day, and they get frustrated with me. Well, they're high in focus. They don't like to have their day constantly interrupted, right? They want to be able to focus on the task at hand and then get back to me when this task is done. And so that helps me, knowing those things about my team helps me as a supervisor understand how to better approach each person individually on my team and why they approach their work in a different way than maybe I do. It also will then help to divvy up tasks better. Who should be doing this versus who should be doing that? Well, what are the strengths of this person versus what are the strengths of that person? Maybe we need to swap. Instead of the way things are laid out now, maybe we need to be trading things around to better suit each individual, to make it fit better. Uh, so this can be utilized in teams really, really well. I love the opportunity to work with supervisors and managers to look at each individual on their team and see, okay, what does this person bring to the table? Are they struggling with something? Maybe this will help us explain why.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe not. Maybe there's something personal that is completely beyond our skill set that is coming into play here. But again, having these conversations are going to help us better understand that. It's going to help us increase our emotional intelligence a little bit as well, right? Because if we're having these conversations, we're going to start learning about the external factors that might be playing into our productivity and things like that. So I while I enjoy individual coaching with these things, to me, the team dynamics are where we really get to the heart of it. Working with teams is my bread and butter, and where I really love to see this stuff come together, because there is so much at play when you start mixing and matching.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I also think about as a manager,
Mhm.
I think about how to challenge my people as well,
Mhm.
knowing their weaknesses, knowing their strengths, right? Like my coordinator is not a public speaker, whereas I am very comfortable public speaking,
Sure.
right? And so I always do our reporting to the board of trustees for my organization, and I've
Sure.
been to nudge her into, hey, why don't you report on this one section? You don't have to do the whole report, but do this one section just for that experience. Is that a frowned upon, or is that kind of pushing
I
people in the
don't
right direction?
I don't think it's ever frowned upon to, to try to encourage people to explore for themselves, right? And
Sure.
to be pushed slightly out of their comfort zone. I think if and when it continues to fail, then we realize like, okay, this is clearly just not her strong suit, and maybe we need to keep things where they're at. But what else can she do to help you prepare for that moment? That's maybe more behind the scenes and more in her wheelhouse. So you're both contributing, but you're contributing in ways that make sense for both of you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm never going to discourage anybody from trying something new or trying something that feels a little uncomfortable. Absolutely not. I just think when it comes to when you're seeing repeated failure,
yeah,
at some point you have to ask why. And if you're seeing like, okay, it's not just that this person doesn't want to do it, it's just not something that comes naturally to them.
sure.
And so, okay, how else can they contribute? Is the next question that we can ask from there. Um, but I think trying things for the first time and being pushed in that way, I think that's totally fine and encouraged, right? Like we
Yeah.
should all be trying things, trying new things.
No, it's Lindsay approved. It's going forward.
Brother mom approved.
Let's go. Awesome. That's awesome. So my last question of the show, kind of jumping back into the individual, you alluded to this earlier that the Gallup strengths actually don't change much over time. And
Yeah.
I'm interested, as people, I think we progress over time. I like to think that I'm
Yep.
not Travis I was when I was 20. I hope I'm slightly different. Um, so I'm
Yes.
interested in how do those two things play together? And we progress as people over time. So do our strengths or do they stay the same, and how we utilize them changes? How does that play together?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you take one of the personality assessments, so like MBTI or Enneagram, for example, you could take it today, you could take it 6 months from now, you could take it 5 years from now. Your results likely are going to shift at least a little bit, sometimes a lot. My Enneagram changes every like 6 months, right?
Oh wow.
It just depends on where I'm at in the moment, and what's going on in my life. That really severely impacts those assessments because they are much more focused on the here and now, and your personality, how you're approaching things, right? And so you're going to see a lot of growth when you're taking one of those assessments. With Clifton Strengths, you are talking about what your natural abilities, what you were born able to do, what
Yeah.
is comfortable for you versus not comfortable. And chances are like that's going to shift a little bit, but it's not going to shift a ton. You're going to learn a lot over the course of your life, but these particular talents are not necessarily something that are learned. They're something that you're born with. And so the more you practice them, the better you're going to get and the stronger
Right.
they are going to become for you. Um, but they're probably always going to be there. So if you are someone who has taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment, in college or whatever, and then you go out and you get a job and you're living your life as a professional and you take it again and you're like, well, my results are very different now. Like my top five are not even the same. So, as I alluded to before, there are 34 potential outcomes. Your top 10 to 13 are all really strong for you. And
Okay.
most people, when they take the assessment, they're only seeing their top five.
Hmm.
Um, so, if you were to pull your full 34, you're going to see those 6 through 12, 13, whatever.
Hmm.
Those things are all also things that you're really good at, that
Oh, okay.
maybe were just below the surface. And those top 10 to 13 things are going to shift up and down in the top 10 to 13 over the course of your life, depending on what you are using and what you're not using in those moments.
Right.
So, for example, command and communication are my 6 and 7 right now.
Hmm.
Those are things that are I use frequently, and when I was traveling a lot and presenting a lot, they were in my top 5. Now that I'm a little more behind the scenes and I'm writing more curriculum and I'm doing a little more, design work and things like that, um, they've shifted slightly lower. So, they're there. I still have those talents. I can still get up on a stage and do my thing, okay,
Right.
but I'm just not using it as much right at this very moment. So, they're showing up a little bit lower. Whereas responsibility has been in my top 5 from the first time I took the assessment to now, because that's just like at the core of who I am. I'm emotionally tied to the work that I do. And
Sure.
so that's never going to fade. So that explains a little bit of like if you have taken the assessment several times over the course of your life and things have shifted or they're not showing up as the same, that's why you're probably only seeing the top 5, not seeing what's just below the surface. And those things are going to shift as you grow, as you gain new experiences, as you are utilizing different talents that you possess.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I really enjoyed this conversation about strengths. We all have them, and
Yeah.
we all utilize them and be aware of them, and not give so much focus to the weaknesses. That's my takeaway for today. That's really good.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much, Lindsay. If people want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you are interested in diving into strengths a little bit more, if you want some individual coaching, or if this is something that you feel like would be really beneficial for your department, your group, your organization, your workplace, what have you, you can find me at lindsayleeds.com. My name is spelled interestingly, so it is Lynnsy leads, all one word.com. And you can see a little bit more about the things that I speak on and the coaching that I do there. Or you can email me at lindsayleeds.com. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me, Travis. I so enjoy this and I love to see you thriving. As an adult, as a dad, love that.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. And if you're listening, I hope that you will dive into your strengths. And remember, we're going to continue to learn how to adult together. Thank you so much to Lindsay for coming on the show and helping us all learn how to adult. To stay up to date on all things How to Adult, make sure that you follow at How to Adult TW on Instagram and Facebook. And remember, we're going to learn how to adult together. See you next time.